Hope everyone's well. So a little different schedule. What's today? So Friday, we kind of had an OTA type practice where obviously everything we did today was competitive O versus D. We didn't try to simulate one of the four teams' looks that we're going to play. It was just good on good with a focus on third down, red zone, 2-minute. We'll do the same tomorrow, and then these guys will be back Monday or Tuesday based on the day of our game. So really a lot like an OTA practice. Any questions?
You've seen obviously a couple of the teams that you could play. You haven't seen a couple of them. Do you do more advanced work on the teams that you have?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, look, there's four options. One's in the division. We played one 2 years in a row, or it feels like that, with Houston. Buffalo. We'll break down kind of all four, and then look at, we'll have personnel reports on the four, and then my understanding is, one of the Sunday games would put us on the weekend, probably with a Saturday time slot. That's not final. And then obviously, if we're waiting for the Monday night game, that would have to be a Sunday time slot. But you do have enough time to look at third down, look at personnel packages, study situational football, and I think that's pretty common. When you look at playoff history, a lot of times you end up with a division team sometimes in the first round. I know that's happened a number of times over the years with me. It's hard to gauge, how these other games are going to go, not having really spent much time looking at New England, seen Jacksonville. So it's one of those where you just, you watch them, you're working while you watch them, you're working on each plan, and then you go from there.
Is there anything to be gained from watching like the broadcast as the game happens, or is it really about?
No, I think there is something. I think, look, there's something to be gained always. What the broadcast gives you is a little bit clearer injury information, like, the player left for this series. Where in the all 22, you have to actually go back and find the play he came out. It's not as noticeable. The all 22 is quiet. The broadcast can give you momentum, can give you like how the game's being played. And so one of the things now, believe it or not, like on our clicker, you can click end zone wide broadcast. Like you can get all of that if you want it when you're watching a play. But we'll be, look, I don't know what time the games are, but we'll be in here, prepping and then watching. And then I think the players understand both itineraries. They have really what is a Saturday game itinerary for the week and a Sunday.
How good is this week been, having guys who are a little banged up getting some rest, and just everybody getting rest in general?
I think it's everyone in their own way has got, at this time of the year, a number of things. Players get away for a while. We all get away. Every time we have a break like this, I get sick. And so I feel like I've gotten over that. But for 3 days, you sleep and you recover. We've had quite a bit of interest with guys on our staff, deservedly so. And so it's much more efficient now with the the ability to Zoom interviews than maybe it was 10 years ago. And so those are all good byproducts of winning.
Do you still talk to them about how to handle two different alleys there that they have?
Yeah, I think, no, they're good enough. It used to be more difficult. I'll tell you when it was hard is when, like, Billy's got to get on a flight and go here, and then he's going to get back. And then it took, to fly somewhere and interview, let's just say, minimum 6 to 8 hours, and then to Zoom, it's not near as extensive. And these guys, when I say these guys, our staff members, they've done this. They've been a part of some of this before. For some of them, it's their first go-round. It's always challenging. You guys, we all watched, the challenge time frame in college with the hiring of another coach and the bowl season and recruiting. I always felt like that cycle should begin at the end of the Super Bowl season, but then there's a great argument to be made for those teams that are waiting, that want to start, getting their program going. Talking about our level, but it's always been a challenge to figure out the balance with that. But our guys have done a great job with it. It's not the first time it's happened. It's happened a number of times. You'll be getting ready for, a key championship game, and you've got a member of your staff that's a strong candidate to become the next head coach of the Lions. And yet, that's why they're special, though, because, they can multitask. They understand what their goal is, and they can still perform their job, and I just finished telling the team, I said, hey, we've got 4 weeks, right at this stage, right now, we got a month. And you really have a month left together as a team. That's the truth. There's change, and, let's make the most of it.
Sean, how do you navigate and think about the future when you've got the interest in Vance, but also the interest in Jim and kind of
Man, it's Vance, it's Jim, it's Davis, it's I'd rather be worrying about navigating those issues than you guys asking me any word yet on an assistant, and I'm like, no one yet. It means we've done a good job of hiring the right people, and I want to see them. I want to see them realize their dreams. So I think it's really early in the process. I think, some of these teams every 3 years come up, and our guys are smart to understand there's no utopia, but there's some places that are tough to win at.
Sean, you say all the time nothing surprises you, but were you a little surprised? What was your reaction to John Harbaugh?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Nothing surprises me. There's always that, every year there's that, I didn't see that one. And so when you have a guy, and I work with John, Philadelphia, and, when you're someplace that long, that's hard to do in this league. And those guys, when I say those guys, ownership and John and that collective group have won a lot of games. They were our Achilles heel for a number of years. And then we finally won a game where their kicker missed an extra point, but just reach out with a text and, but that one was a little surprising.
Coach, number one seed, and over the past 2 years, you have the third most wins in the NFL. You've also been dealing with cap issues and developing a young quarterback. Did you anticipate it to go this quick and this position? Right?
It's a fair question. It's hard to ever anticipate like the one seed. There's a lot that goes into that. last year was a year that said, hey, we belong here in this, and we can win. There was a lot of confidence gained in the season. And so then after last season, I think the expectations rose internally as well as externally. And you never quantify, like you've heard me say, hey, the first goal is to win the division. Well, that's pretty defined. That means you come in first. And then secure the best seed, because that's a little bit less defined. The best seed that you can, and then try to win a championship. So it's much harder to predict how many wins, what seed. You just want to be in the tournament, and find a way to, and with all due respect, to beat a team like Kansas City that sat atop the division for quite a while here. So after the period of free agency, when we signed a few guys and we got into OTAs, I'd made the comment to a few of you that I thought this team had a chance to be unique, and it was some of it was based on the experience of some of the guys we signed, and I feel the same way now. Just that whole crew, Greenlaw, those guys. It's a positive because they understand the journey it takes. It's not easy. Nothing's given or taken for granted. You know what I mean? That these one seeds aren't like car wash coupons. They're hard, and so. Those guys, just in their day-to-day interactions with those players that come from teams that have won, John Franklin Myers, Super Bowl, that experience helps. No, I listen. George will just shoot me an email, and Vance, we all stay in touch. There's a gap where the league's set aside. It becomes easier if you have a bye. It becomes more difficult when you're playing. I'm always more of, hey, if you need help, if there's any questions, if I can help you in any way, let me know, either with a call or advice on anything. But it wasn't too long ago where all these things were in person. I can recall, I never had a Zoom. I wish I had a Zoom 7 days with Al Davis. That's 3 books. It was, I'm telling you. But they've got a pretty good handle on it. The same thing I was told. Look, there's only 32 of them, but there's some that at that present time. Look, I had a suit purchased and everything, and at the last minute stayed, and it was good advice. I didn't want to hear it, but so you're looking at cap, you're looking at they're open for a reason. So there's not a utopia, but you are looking for just a chance. You have to have a chance. And so even for myself looking, a few years ago, I felt like we had a chance here because of ownership and front office. We weren't choosing to be in the same division as Mahomes or, but some of the things that can prevent you from winning, those are the ones you want to try to avoid.
Sean, in that vein, when you have a coach that's maybe looking that is interviewing elsewhere, you talk about vision with players. You sort of lay that vision out with the coach to say, okay, if you stay here, this is my vision.
Yeah. I mean, I'll communicate with the staff at the end of the season. We'll have long discussions. Each one's different. My relationship with the coaching staff. I try to make sure that we're not getting too big. We have a tendency right now to, in general, just more is not necessarily better. I'm fortunate, and I've said this before, I've got a tremendous group of teachers. It's a part of why we're here where we're at right now. And it's a part of why I've experienced this multiple times prior to this is because of other really good assistant coaches that have taught and done a good job of caring about the players and bought into the culture. And I think that you guys have covered them. You've covered the coordinators, but you've also met with the assistants, and they're part of it, a very important part.
Your offense, is it fair to say the last couple games, because of the opponent's situations, backup quarterbacks, that you took more of a Belichickian?
Yeah,
Ski?
I'd like to say that, but honestly, you guys know me well enough. We're going to have to play better, and so I'd love to say that we pulled a bunch back, but that the tape from last week wasn't really good offensively. Wasn't great at Kansas City either. It was good enough to win that game, but no, it has to be like we've got to be sharper. As we get to these next few games here, we're going to see good teams that can score, and we're going to see defenses, and so that's why I said to him, I said, look, I don't want to just go out and fill in today or just fill in time. But I'm going to be honest with you. Our third down numbers bother me. Each side of the ball, we can improve in that area. These games are going to come down to a 2-minute. I want those to be competitive, right? And then I really want to work our red zone offense and defense. And, I feel like I was a little salty last week. I mean, that just wasn't Kisla. It just was salty. I like Mark.
You don't know your phone in the playoffs, but you think Bo needs to be more aggressive in the playoffs going down the field?
No, I think let me answer the question. Do I think he needs to be more aggressive going down to the field, going downfield in the playoffs? A lot of that would be based on who we're playing. Like, we want to be aggressive. We obviously want to, and we will take our shots, but a lot of it, like, tell me the opponent. And then it's like, all right, how's that got to be done? Are they an eyes-in team or are they a man team? But, we'll definitely stretch the ball down the field. We feel like we've got some guys that can go down and get it. We'll be aggressive in how we call these games. We just finished with, 2-point play to win. The opponent's here. We got to assume they're on the road. They're down 1. End of game. What are they doing? They're going for the win. And so I want to see our defense respond. You're on the road. You're the underdog. You're going for the win. And so just creating those scenarios as best we can so that we behave the way we want to in those scenarios. We're not surprised.
Sean, are you guys expecting Drake Greenlaw back for playoff run?
Yeah, I think we see most everyone back.
Is that
Yeah, no comments on him yet. He's getting close, but Dre's getting there. Yeah,
How about Jay and
Vance,
yeah.
if someone calls you and asks about Vance.
He's having a baby. He's not having a baby, but
If someone calls you, one of these teams with an opening, asks about Vance, where do you sort of start in what you've learned about him over the last couple of years? Or what makes him a key?
there's a presence. Number one, there's a presence about him that's very important. You're looking to hire the leader of your team and someone that has that command. I think he's got a great command about him when he walks into a room. I think he's one of those in this day and age, which is real important. He's got real good people skills in that, you can go department to department and he'll have a great relationship with those people. So he wears well in the building. That's a good trait. And then I think his experience, I think having had that opportunity and now come back full circle, he's going to be successful. There's a presence with him now, a confidence with him, but in a very guided and humbled way. He's extremely smart. And I would say has had a ton to do with our team's success. And so I've known him for years. We never were on staff together, but we always seemed to play each other in the preseason, or we played games against Arizona, and so I think it's not a matter of if, it's when and who. I think it's going to happen, and I know when that time comes, there'll be 110 people on the other side of those doors, super excited for him.
Sean, where you stand here compared to when you first got here, what have you learned about working with George, the evolution just of that?
Our relationship's been great. I've never seen anyone still spell Payton the way he does. Honestly, find me. It's E-Y or A-Y. It's not Patton. We have a lot in common. I was lucky for all those years to have a relationship like that with Mickey Loomis, and I consider the relationship that I have with George. I'd heard so many good things about him prior to meeting him, and then when I met him that day we interviewed, I found him to be just like what everyone had described. I think I can't speak for him, but I really enjoy working with him. We both are passionate about the same things. I think he likes that I love scouting, and I like that he comes from a coach's family, and he was at UCLA, I think, as a walk-on, red shirt. The first game I ever was a graduate assistant at San Diego State, and they whipped our tails. We come from a lot of similar backgrounds. I enjoy, and you have to because you spend so much time together, but it's probably one of the more undervalued aspects. Find me the head coach and GM tied at the hip, and then you got a chance, And I feel like he and I have an extremely close relationship, trust, but also we see things in a similar fashion. And again, he mentioned this, I said it, there were so many people that we knew that knew both of us that had said this will be perfect, but we just hadn't met.
Sean, when you thought your team last year was the first playoff experience for you guys, were you hoping they can draw this go around that maybe they didn't take advantage of?
Well, I think it's short. It's a 3-hour game. When you play the games, and you want to get out and start fast. I think you lose a game like last year in Buffalo, and it's cold, and you're up there, and you're like, we got to figure out how to play this game at home. That's one of the things that went through my mind in Chicago in 2006. We lost the NFC Championship game. It was like minus 20 degrees. And we were beyond that, like, dome tag team. We had won on the road in a number of cold weather games, but nonetheless, how do you play these important ones at home? And you guys have been a part of it. And so, man, knock on wood, we've been able to put ourselves in a position to play these real important games, you know, in a tough environment for our opponent. But it's a quick game. It's 3 hours. And so ball security, you know, all the things that we harp on can be the difference between winning and losing.
So one of the guys on your team that seems to have flown under the radar a little bit, at least from an outside perspective, is Devin McKee.
Man, I was hoping you were going to say his name. Seriously.
Yeah, well,
So I just announced and didn't realize it.
Coach, I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk at all about. I'm just going to say I'm not going to talk anything. I just realized he's had more special teams tackle than anyone in the history of the Broncos. And every week as we give awards, special team game balls, offense, defensive game balls, his name comes up. And then even in his play last week when he came on defense, he just steady, quietly. Is he at 28 and a half tackles, 29? And we could talk about the extended game. I get it. But that's hard to do in the kicking game now. That's hard to do. And tomorrow we'll get to talk about the other stuff. I wasn't going to blow that. I was strictly sticking with, but I was really proud to hear. Like when I hear something in the history of, depending on where you're at, but when you're at Denver and you say in the history of, well, then that means something, right? This place has played a lot of good football for a long time, and he's tackled more people in the kicking game than anyone in the history of. And I think there will be a lot of former special teamers, former defensive players that would be like, wow, like that's something. There's a grit to that, you know, and a toughness to that. And I always love that story that Parcells told when they were beating somebody, but they were having trouble covering the kicks. And Taylor had gotten tired of seeing these kick returns in this game, and he basically dismantled the kick coverage unit, and he picked 10 others, and it was the best we got, he called them. And these guys, they just lined up across the field and covered a kick. They didn't have lane integrity or any. They just went down, and Taylor was tired of seeing that ball start at midfield. And so I asked Bill, what did you do? He said, I just let him pick the other 10. And so Devin's one of those guys that, and remember, it's not like the opponent doesn't recognize who they have to double team, you know. So that's what's impressive.